Hello, welcome to a new episode of The Business of YouTube. Today we have a special guest, also known as the Queen of Kids Content and the Queen of Roblox. So, I mean, that's royalty for me. Welcome to the podcast, Joe Redfern. Hello.
Hello, welcome. Do you know what? I forgot my crown. I should have been wearing my
Where's the
crown.
crown? That's unexpected. I mean, I thought you were wearing the crown all the time. That's so
Yeah, all the
comfortable.
time.
Come on.
I sleep in it, shower in it. It does make me laugh. I'm honoured to have received those monikers, but yeah, it's quite funny to think that maybe, I think tongue-in-cheek people are referring to me as that, but maybe based in the fact that I do spend a huge amount of time on Roblox and immersing in kids' media behaviours.
So you definitely very well understood from your kids, and that's what we usually see. Like we understand, we have our test group at home, and we still are cool with the kids because we understand these things, which is good. But the good thing is as well, like besides being cool with the kids, is that we understand what's gonna happen in the next few years, because their user behavior is what is going to happen in terms of change of behavior on users in the next few years, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm really happy that you are in the podcast today, because what I see, although the podcast is about the business of YouTube, and you're definitely very, very knowledgeable about YouTube, but you are really super knowledgeable about Roblox, and that's a very, very much your peculiarity that is very rare on the market. And I think that the user behavior is very similar anyway. So it's the young kids, the new generation, they do both. So the way they do interact with both of the platform, that might actually be very useful to learn now and not when it's too late. So
Exactly.
thank you for accepting the invitation.
No, I mean, this is why, I mean, we've spoken before about this, and this is why it's super interesting to chat with you, and I'm really pleased to be here, because the similarities between Roblox and YouTube are so very clear. And much like you, I spotted the opportunity on YouTube a good few years ago and have worked almost exclusively across the platform for the last 4 or 5 years, having come from the world of broadcast and the world of kids media. But I've said it before, what often that does when you work in the world of kids media, if you are, like me, obsessed about their behavior across their platforms and what they're consuming and why they love it, it gives you that glimpse into the future. You know, anyone with kids of their own has their own focus group that basically shows them what the future is. Those of us in the industry, you know, we're just trying to figure that out and try and catch up and make some money along the way. But what's interesting is this parallel that I see between YouTube, which is now, you know, over 18 years old as a platform, for a while was dismissed by a lot of rights owners and broadcasters as just that platform where you put up 20-second clips, to now it's a fully fledged ecosystem. And YouTube, as you well know, is now young people's default search engine. It's where they go to find out stuff. It's where they go to swim around in their favorite content. It's where they go to watch sports highlights, but it's also where they go to find out what Jude Bellingham eats for breakfast. It's a whole content ecosystem. You've got creators that are there, that are the tastemakers. And the same thing is happening on Roblox. Roblox is the same kind of platform as YouTube. It's user-generated content that's on there. There are 5 million active experiences on there. It's low code. So the barrier to entry on Roblox is relatively low. You don't need a degree in computer science to get on there and get building. But the interesting thing is that very often users on Roblox are watching YouTube at the same time, because they're watching their favorite streamer or gamer play a Roblox experience. So the symbiosis between the two is so very clear.
Yeah, it's the same users, and sometimes they're doing the same exactly at the same time as well, and they're just that's their world of entertainment, 100%. So that's going to be evolving in many different ways. But now, before we go to the future and the present, in reality, because this is more the present than the future, let's go to the past, and let's dig down a bit where you're coming from. what's your kind of experience? Because that's very rich in terms of understanding the whole ecosystem as well.
So I started off in my career basically marketing. I'm a brand person at heart, and started off working in the video business when videos and DVDs were still a thing, and worked for a DVD licensee as their marketing manager. But the company that I worked for decided they wanted to get into the business of making their own IP, which was really fascinating for someone like me, because I'd looked at Barbie and I'd looked at Bratz dolls at the time and was like, what really makes those things huge? What turns them into an IP that young people or kids actually, they must have that toy? Always been fascinated with the alchemy behind that. So where I was working, they wanted to get into making their own IP. And after they'd made a kids animation called Tractor Tom, along came this pilot for a little show called Peppa Pig. And Peppa Pig, as you know, 20 years later, 20 odd years later, Peppa Pig is still a globally successful IP. Now, they don't come around very often. So having had the honor of being there at the beginning with Peppa Pig, and then subsequently spending time at places like Disney and WWE, also masters in creating fandom. IP, must have IP.
Like they must say many different things, to be fair, like creating IP, creating fandom, creating communities, creating digital experiences, offline experiences. I mean, commercially very mindful, and they really know their stuff, I have to say.
Yeah, exactly. But that, even as the world in the intervening 20 years has moved on, digital transformation, at the core of it is still the same principles. The principles of fandom is you create something that services a need in fans that isn't being serviced elsewhere. And we're all human beings. We want connection. We want to laugh. We want to love something. We want to go and experience something in real life, but we also want the digital experiences that follow us around on a daily basis. And so now when we're in 2025, that idea of fandom, at the core of it, it's still the same, but then how you then grow it, how you reach your audiences, how you reach kids in 2025 versus way back in 2002 is different. But the principle is still the same. It's still about loving something. It's about good stories. It's about characters. It's about relatability. And we, as you know, we've got a situation now where YouTube has become the first destination for kids for video. It's where they go first. They don't go to CBeebies anymore, or they don't go to traditional linear channels, or even necessarily Netflix. I mean, they kind of do. But it's becoming more and more evident, particularly as they get given these things in their early teenage years, or if not before, they go to YouTube. That's where they consume their content. And given that gaming is taking an increasing proportion of young people's time, they go to Roblox too. So this is the real nub of the opportunity, and why you and I, when we chat, we get so excited, is because the opportunity of YouTube. It's become your business, and now increasingly I'm kind of bringing in Roblox to the conversation. But the point about building fandom in an IP is that you can't afford to think in only just one distribution channel. It has to be this holistic transmedia strategy or multi-platform strategy, whatever name you want to give it. If you are to really create a fandom, you need all of those touch points. And you need to figure out what your audience loves whilst they're on certain platforms. So for TikTok, it's short form content. But YouTube, it can be a little bit longer. Yes, you might have a streamer or a broadcast series. That's fine. What's your live event play? All of those need to work in concert, because then all the boats rise. But it's not easy to do that. And particularly a lot of, in sport, a lot of rights owners still very much think in that fragmented way in individual channels, and not about how you create an ecosystem for fans and get them into the ecosystem and then keep them there, keep them circling around that ecosystem. And then obviously, then you've got a business.
Well, definitely the kids, and then, younger generation in general, it's not that they don't want to consume content. They consume way more content than they were before. Like for any more than any other generation. It's the how they consume it, which completely different. It's completely different, and that's the key part to be understood for both being relevant to whoever, but at the same time to make a business out of it, because there is a business there, and not a little one. It is business, and that's there's proper numbers to be looked at, and still quite of an open opportunity. It's not all gone and pure competition on very little margins. It's like growth.
Yeah.
And if done properly, it's complicated, but if done properly, then it's pure growth.
It's complicated because as any business or industry knows, you have your core audience. As you know, in sport, your core audience is aging up, but you've got a younger audience coming through that consumes sport and show their fandom in completely different ways to previous generations. Couldn't be more different. So then how do you marry the two? Because you've got a business over here that you still need to keep going, knowing that potentially it will end eventually, but then you need to start building for the new audiences. But then you get conflicts because there's challenges in terms of rights cycles. And so, all of those things, I get it. It's messy and it's complicated. What is interesting with having come from kids entertainment is that they were grappling with that a few years ago. Because of the nature of the audience, they were grappling with this multi-platform consumption of content and how you go and kind of scoop up potential fans there a while ago, which is why I can kind of see how it could be applied in sport. But, again, unless you've got very, very young kids, as a parent, you will remember when yours were little, it was like, no, they're not going to watch lots of screens. They might watch an hour a day of TV. I'm going to sit them in front of it. And then they're going to be doing kind of healthy stuff. And then, of course, that goes out of the window as they get a little bit older and you have another child and you're kind of, trying to work and parents. And then you're like, okay, screen babysitter. But that said, kids media and big franchises had to embrace YouTube a good few years ago because they knew that's where the audience were. So now you've got big kids IP like Bluey. Bluey is huge. It's the most streamed show in the US last year, according to Nielsen data that was released this year. That, it's on Disney Plus, but it also has a really significant YouTube strategy. They now have a budget to create bespoke content for YouTube. That's a real game changer. That's relatively recent because it used to be that you did just put your clips from your core broadcast content or your streamer series on YouTube. So that shows a shift. So again, this is almost gives us a blueprint into sport going, it's a different consumption pattern on YouTube. You have got young people that are there that are just swimming around in content. It's the shoulder content. Doesn't have to be as highly produced. They're quite happy if, the quality of production is quite handheld because it feels more genuine and authentic. But given that a lot of YouTube is, or they've been consuming it quite, close quarters through their phone screen, it feels more genuine presented that way. So
actually,
there's an opportunity.
I had Greg Dre here a few episodes ago, and he was saying the same thing on like having what they're doing is actually buying IP, high quality IP that is then like broadcasted in like globally. And then, but at the same time, they do as well like everything on the platform, which is like they keep producing, which is slightly less highly produced, so that they can produce more. But still, it's shoulder content that is helping out everything else, and actually they are distributing that as a revenue strategy, as a marketing strategy that's creating value for the distributors then and the broadcasters. So that's something that's evolving in that direction. And the more you do that, the more you can get both high quality content, so there's still the premium content, but then there's the more of a platform style content, which doesn't need to be super, super premium. Like if it's premium, brilliant, but it doesn't need to.
No, and I mean, there's two things there. I mean, I love what Greg is doing at Animage. It's so smart because those IP still resonate. They're, again, created with heart, with love. There is authenticity there. They are good shows. Pocoyo, one of my favorite shows, adore it. So to take that and then relaunch it or to support it, being aware of the new way of distributing. And of course, you get new generations of kids coming through for whom Pocoyo is new and not that IP that's 15, 20 years old. So it's super, super smart, because then, like you said, the cost of production is coming down, but also this idea of quality. And I have upset people in the past when I've put forward the provocation that actually the notion of quality is not decided by broadcasters anymore. Really, the notion of quality should be rightly dictated by your consumers and your audience. And if
the user saying what is quality and what is premium versus not.
Exactly. And for me, premium might not be 4K production, but for me, quality is good storytelling, good stories, good characters. If we're in sport, that stuff that fans really want to know. Yes, they do want to watch live games and they want highlights. But I know from my 15-year-old son, who is now completely crazy for Barcelona women's team, he wants to know what Salma Paralluelo, their striker, is doing this week. So it's that's important to him. He wouldn't care if it was just a handheld piece of content that she's creating going into the dressing room. That's quality to them. And I think that's an interesting mind shift, because there's a lot of people who think they are the ones who set what quality is. And that notion of quality is shifting as platforms evolve, as tech evolves, and as consumer behavior evolves.
Well, we were talking about that in 2010 at MidCom with Greg when he was not even a YouTube at the time. YouTube. We were celebrating 5 years of YouTube. I was still there at YouTube, and so it's still relevant in 2025. And the quality, like the whole talk about the quality being like authenticity is quality, the new quality, and that's what really matters. And then high production matters in certain cases, so depends on where you distribute it. Perfect, but quality is, I agree with you. I mean, impossible not to. Most probably we're not the majority, but quality is what the user says it's quality and what they want to watch. So
yeah. There's a reason. There's a reason that there is the saying, "Beauty is in the eye of the beholder." It's the same thing, isn't it?
It's the same concept. It doesn't change.
Exactly. So you look at some of the really popular games on Roblox, and like I said, there's similarities between Roblox and YouTube. So some of the games on Roblox and experiences, you go on there and they're very lo-fi. You look at it and you're like, okay, this is a hyper casual game. It hasn't got a really detailed environment. It's a pretty plain standard Roblox studio background, but it's an eat slimes and grow huge kind of game. You're a slime, you're eating other slimes to get bigger. You don't want a slime that's bigger than you to grab you. I mean, you don't need a beautifully kind of rendered background behind that. It's just a brilliant game. So, and at any one time, there's thousands of users in it. So you've got that, but then, you can go, Netflix have got a Roblox world where they drop in some of their big IP that they're launching on Netflix. I mean, even they've acknowledged that a lot of their future customers are hanging out on Roblox. So they've created a world where they've dropped in One Piece. They're launching Squid Game mini games. So, going back to the point where you need to go fishing where your audience are. If you look at YouTube and Roblox, as you know, YouTube, over 2.5 billion monthly users. Roblox, we're due in just over a week's time, the latest figures from Roblox. They're going to release their earnings. But currently, as of last quarter, nearly 90 million daily active users. That's 90 million users that are going on to Roblox. And on average, they're spending over 2 hours a day there. So I did the maths, and you might have seen on LinkedIn, that in one quarter, in quarter three, in 2024, the amount of minutes engaged on Roblox equated to 2.3 million years. That's a huge amount of time. So if you are a rights holder or an IP owner or a sporting organization, and you're looking to engage an audience that the majority of which are under 24, you've got to be there.
But
you've got to show up.
Fishing, understanding, get the data, tryouts. But let's move on the sports organization. So, for example, what did you see on the platform on Roblox specifically? Because we had these chats before, which was very interesting from my point of view. I love data, so I know I love something that is like tangible and it's not just opinion, because we definitely are opinionated, the both of us, on the topic. But then what really matters is the numbers. Do the number make sense or not? Is there a business point, yes or not? So on the numbers, like any example of games or numbers of games, or like anything you saw in the platform that is really worth as an example that should be looked at from a sport organization, for example.
Yes. So numbers, I gave you the daily active users. In terms of the Roblox economy, $2.8 billion went through the Roblox economy in 2023. So again, we're expecting those numbers in a couple of weeks for 2024. Those are transactions, in-game transactions, microtransactions, avatar updates. You can have premium tier games that you pay for, much like YouTube, but the majority of spend comes through microtransactions on the platform. But in terms of businesses or developers that are succeeding there, and when we relate that to sport, that's really fascinating, because you've got a huge developer base on Roblox. Because it's relatively low barriers to entry, you've got tens, if not hundreds of thousands of developers who are developing games for the platform. A lot of them have been on the platform 7, 8, 9, 10 years. They've turned what was their passion into a business. They are there. They know the trends. They're delivering against trends. Squid Game launched recently, and if you go on there, you will see hundreds of Squid Game games that have just been spun up. Unofficial, but Netflix turns a blind eye, because guess what? If there's lots of users playing Squid Game on Roblox, they're more likely to go and watch it on Netflix. So, but some, so you've got ones that can really hop on trends and make some money from those transactions, really make some good money, but with the knowledge that actually that will wane quite quickly as attention moves elsewhere, or there's the next big launch. What I see the opportunity is for sports, and again, this is what has happened to those more forward-thinking sports organizations that have embraced YouTube. There's an opportunity for sports that need to build a much longer relationship with fans and bring through new fans to go onto the platform and start building that relationship. That will mean that the monetization is slower, but the upside is much longer. So, I mean, when you've got sports that have seasons, you've got a storyline, because towards the end of the season, you've got the run-in, you've got relegations, you've got promotions, you've got championship battles. All of those are points that you can build stories around in a Roblox experience. But again, you've got a Shopify integration happening this year. So at some point this year, you will be able to go into an experience, you'll be able to put an item in a basket. It could be a jersey, it could be another item of merchandise, and it goes into a Shopify basket. So you can then plug it into your commercial strategy. But more than that, because of this lovely symbiosis between YouTube and Roblox, if a user is encountering a sport on Roblox, the likelihood is they go and search YouTube and see what content they can find for that sport or that IP on YouTube. So then you've got first move around that transmedia system, ecosystem we spoke about. So then if you can get them to YouTube, how do you get them around that flywheel again? How do you take them maybe onto an OTT or to watching something on a streamer or broadcast? And then how do you think about maybe tempting them to buy a ticket for a live game at some point? So that for me, Roblox is a really interesting way not only to monetize, and of course that's a conversation you have to have, particularly with sports rights holders, but it's about building a relationship with future fans on the proviso that actually their lifetime value will be much higher, because you're building a relationship with them. Because what's important to realize is, because there is so much content vying for people's attention, young people, they know the value of their attention. So they'll make you work for it. They want to know if you're going on YouTube or you're going on Roblox, you're not just going to throw up 10 videos or launch a game and then go away and never update it. They want you to come back and to keep evolving it, to give them something new to play, to give them new items to buy. And then when they realize that you're there for the long haul and actually you're investing in that relationship too, they'll give you the benefit of their attention and they'll start making money. Spending money. So that, I think, is the opportunity for me, because it's not about how quick can you start monetizing them. Yes, there are games that, you know, are making millions of dollars a month. But when you're a sports rights holder or you're an IP owner trying to build something big and longer term, I think it's patience. If I was to sum it up in a word, Paola, there are big wins to be had for those who are willing to be patient and not force it. And that's the key thing, because you've got, I think I was talking to you about it when we met last. You've got a football fan developer on Roblox who, with no official football partnership, has created a game called Blue Lock Rivals. He's clearly, or they are clearly also anime fans, which is huge amongst kids at the moment. So he's created an anime-themed football game.
And not only, I mean, they were showing the data of anime. It's actually across the board, demographic, generations. It's blown up completely.
Anime is huge. Yeah. So the combination of that cultural moment that anime is having and football, perennially popular, but in a really, really good game on Roblox. And at any one time, that game has got 150,000 concurrent players there playing at any one time. That game is making money. You've got huge games that, you know, at times have got upwards of 1 million users in the game at any one time. So the scale is there, but there's no way to hack it. It's not a quick win unless you're going to do something that is based upon a moment like Squid Game and then acknowledge that it's going to die quickly. But particularly for sports rights holders, it's much more about the long game. And if you go on there and it becomes a persistent part of your strategy, then you will win. And I think, you know, you look at Bundesliga, you know, I think some more forward-thinking sports organizations are beginning to realize that they need to start having relationships with users there, and that they will be the ones that will ultimately benefit in the long term.
Well, I guess that it's really about also content that is off pitch, like in Roblox, like on YouTube. It's like, which is good. There's on pitch, which is like what everybody who can buy a ticket is looking at. But most of the population still wants to watch something off pitch. And kids is really about off pitch, which is perfect. It's like they're risking the whole organization in a way. So you're building loyalty without even showing what's going on the pitch. And that's a much stronger loyalty, because it's not just about the club winning or losing or like what's going on. It's about being really loyal to some values, to something to a brand that you really relate to. So it's much more valuable in the long term. And also, like YouTube's the same. Like it's like, especially if you go on younger generation, where you have as well some archive content. If we're going on pitch, but not on the next game that is going to be played, it's really like everything is about like just the experiencing entertainment. I mean, people are watching content from 20 years ago where the quality is poor, to say the least, or even like really unwatchable. Like in some cases, you can't even see and understand who is whom, and like very different players. But you see the action, and it's just things that the kids don't even know. Like they discover. Like my kid is telling me names of players that I was following when I was 15, and I'm like, hey, I'm not 15 anymore. How do you know they even existed?
Exactly. Same happens with my son. But it goes back very nicely to what we said at the top of the recording. It's still the essence of fandom. So if you are a fan of football, or you are a fan of music, or, you know, it doesn't matter whether it's from 20 years ago. If it's a player that you've heard of, or even a player that was playing then but now is a manager of a football team, so you recognize the name because they're managing in the Prem, if you're a fan, you'll go back and you'll watch that. You know, you've got teenagers who are hungry to know this stuff. If they are fans, they want to know everything. It's the equivalent of when I was young. You know, you would go and buy your football magazine and you'd memorize the stats. Well, now they just do it on YouTube, because that's their way of hoovering up all of that knowledge that comes with what is the essence of fandom. So this is the thing, you know, again, the quality might be materially lower because, you know, how it was shot 15, 20 years ago. Yeah, it's low quality, but that doesn't matter. If it's got a relevance to that fan, They want to know. And that's why YouTube and even Roblox are such perfect platforms for that. Because if it's there, they'll find it, they'll watch it, and it adds into that fandom bucket that they've got. So there's an opportunity. There's so much opportunity there to start having those relationships with fans. You can do it on YouTube. You can do it on Roblox. It doesn't necessarily have to be on pitch. It doesn't necessarily have to be the current game. As long as it is something that feeds their fandom, then it can work. But that takes it can be a mental leap, I think, for a lot of sports rights owners and IP owners to start thinking in that way when there's the pressure to monetize quick. We've got to deliver revenue this season. So, hopefully that's beginning to change as the opportunity to engage younger generations is beginning to become that conversation that rights owners have to have for the future sustainability of the business.
If you were a sport organization, like what would be the number one thing you would do today, not tomorrow? So like, okay, let's say I'm in a sport organization and I want to do something. What should that be?
I would employ me and you to give them a strategy for Roblox and YouTube.
Okay, that's a given. Okay, after that, like a practice. No, I'm not joking either, but and I think it would be perfect, like YouTube and Roblox tick. But other than that, like if you were like to like study something or do something, like whatever the action is that they really need to do.
I think for me, the fundamental thing to do today, not tomorrow, is, even though it can be scary, even though it requires unlearning and relearning a lot of things, roll up your sleeves and you got to go and dive into these platforms where behaviors are weird and crazy and not like we used to behave. But just go and do it. This is why I spend 2 hours a day on Roblox. I'm just trying to absorb what's happening there. What are the new items that are selling in the marketplace? That gives you an idea of the kind of sports fashion that young girls that are on the platform want. I mean, it blows my mind that there are not sports and team apparel strategies based around what's trending on Roblox. So there's so much signaling there, but it's new news for a lot of people. It's quite difficult to accept that you don't really know what's going on and it's all weird. And, why do they like that and not that? But the more you know and the more you can get to know, the more you can then build a strategy around it. So that's what I try to do is, dive into these spaces, much like you do, I'm sure, on YouTube. And I do, on YouTube. I can't remember the last time I sat down and watched of an evening, even a regular TV show, because I spend all of my time on YouTube and Roblox. But you were
watching not a regular YouTube show. You were watching 4 games of women football the other day, and you got me to actually steal the remote from the kids and say, sorry, I need to do an experiment and check the 4 teams playing at the same time, and just and they were all looking at me like, is everything okay? I was like, sorry, this is YouTube, that's okay, so it's fine, never mind.
Yeah, I mean, interesting. So interesting that they debuted that tech and they used women's football, which is great. But you've got that multi-view now. Given what we know about the consumption of YouTube on connected TVs, already over 50% of consumption in the US of content and connected TVs is coming from YouTube. I mean, this is a big old threat to the Netflixes and the Amazon and the Hulus of this world. It's also happening in the UK. It's slightly behind the US, but it's nudging that 50%.
Slightly later, but it's the same. It's always the same path.
So, but you've got the Women's Super League on there. You've got the multi-view. You can follow either your team or you can see what's happening. I mean, this, live in 4 different cup games, and that can be really interesting because fortunes can change within the span of just one game. Okay, there was a staggered start, so the half times and the full times were happening 15 minutes apart. But actually, that then starts building that story. Like we were saying, I need to know this. I need to know what's happening over there, because if they score a goal, this team over here goes out. So then that starts appealing to fans. That's like, I need to be across this. I need to be watching this. I was, switching around all 4 teams to see how the fortunes were ebbing and flowing. That's that's the drama. That's the drama of sport, isn't it? That that's the feeling as a fan that you get very often when you're in the stadium. So what's interesting is now YouTube is looking at ways at how they can increase that fandom and that feeling of, oh, I really need to know through YouTube. And I thought that was really fascinating. I really enjoyed it.
I think that it's adding as well a bit more interactivity to the TV and the usage of the app, because TV, like watching YouTube or any other app on the TV, is the least interactive of all. Yeah. Because of the nature of the device, of course. But in that case, instead, like because it's live, so you keep watching, like you see something happening while you have 4 screens in one screen, then you want to go and just zoom in one or zoom in the other, and then you keep interacting with it. I think that there's something that's going to happen there in terms of more and more interactivity. So it becomes basically a big tablet, which is already, but it's going to be like just a big tablet. Hopefully we get rid of the old style remote control. I can't take them anymore. It's just they're not made for it. It's just this thing is like not working, not for this. But interactivity there is going to be interesting to see, and this is going to, it's a very good experiment to see as well how people are reacting to it. Now we are closing off. One very last question is a bit more personal. But I really like because the question, and because it's usually like people that I interview, they have been through a lot of changes in their life, professional life. They always ask themselves a lot of questions, and they're definitely far from being boring professionals, like which I'm very lucky. So I know a lot of non-boring people, and that's a very good compliment. And what are you most proud of like in your career / personal choices?
Oh goodness, you didn't tell me you were going to ask that.
Yeah, I left it as a surprise.
What am I most proud of? I mean, that, I spoke about Peppa Pig, and whilst I can't claim any credit other than being the marketing manager that did the first style guide, and when I think about how that style guide is, or the core of it is still being used today, it's nice to think that you were there at the very beginning of something. But one of the things that I did when I was at BBC Children's and CBeebies in the UK was part of the team that helped create CBeebies Land, which was the first theme park based around CBeebies at Alton Towers in the UK with Merlin. And that was great, because if we talk about fandom, CBeebies, most watched preschool channel in the UK, well loved. Actually bringing that to life to the point where it was a physical space you could walk around, designing everything from the interiors of the lifts in the hotel to going and looking at the rides and the experiences that were in the theme park, and how you were going to make every part of that little kid's physical journey around CBeebies Land magical, was great. Not anything I'd really gotten involved with before, but it was so fascinating working with the team at Merlin to actually design and build and launch a theme park, and actually having been there the day that they opened it, and you see the kids' faces as they're walking around.
Emotion.
Yeah, it was something special. So that really was a highlight. Love doing that. But there's tons of things that I'm proud of, but were also highlights. Yeah, that hanging out with John Cena when I was at WWE in Milan, because I was chaperoning him on the live tour. That was fun. So, yeah, but
I bet.
Hopefully going to be doing lots of exciting things, of which I can be proud in sports sometime soon.
I have no doubts about that. There's a long way to go. There's lots to be done. All right. Thank you very much for being with me today. And I really enjoyed the chat. I had no doubts about that. And good luck with everything that is going to be happening anytime soon. And I am sure that you're going to be very busy. Keep being curious as you are, because that's what really drives change and drives knowledge. So well done on that.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. And I'm so pleased that we got to meet in person this week. Hopefully we'll do it a lot more in the future.
Yeah, hopefully. Fingers crossed. Thank you, Joe. Thank you. Go back into your crown and in the royal.
I'll go find it.
Go back in the,
put it down somewhere.
in the royal house. All right. Thank you, Joe.